All right, we're live, everyone. Welcome to another edition of the West Ham Media Tour presented by Hammers Polls. Please don't forget to subscribe to the Hammers Polls YouTube channel. I am joined with a very special guest today, a friend of mine, Roshane Thomas, correspondent, West Ham correspondent for The Athletic. Roshane, how you doing, man? Good to see you.
I'm all good, pal. Yourself?
I'm doing well. It's good to talk to you again, as always. A lot to talk about over the last couple weeks, or from the last couple of weeks in the West Ham world. Never a dull moment supporting this club. But yeah, let's just dive right into it. Before we actually dive right into it, I want to, for those that either don't know your story or maybe have not subscribed to The Athletic yet, sort of give the people a little bit of a spiel about how you got into being the West Ham correspondent for The Athletic.
Yeah. So how I got this job was pretty much through word of mouth. Oliver Kay, he's one of our writers. He recommended me to our boss, Alex Kajelski, and then I met Alex. Well, actually, prior to meeting Alex, he said you're gonna be the Burnley writer. So
Ah,
I want you to pitch me 10 stories you do for Burnley. So I'm pitching stories like the White McNeil. I think Chris Wood was there at the time. Jay Rodriguez, just stories on my journeys to Burnley. So I met him at this calf at Tottenham Court Road, and then I pitched my ten story ideas on Burnley, and then he was like, "You're not covering Burnley, you're covering West Ham." So I think that was a trick to see how like determined I was to like live outside of London, for example, and be
yeah.
outside my comfort zone. So yeah, that was an interesting trick. But yeah, he said you're covering West Ham, so then we got the ball rolling on what I'll be doing, the sort of coverage I'll be providing subscribers, that sort of stuff. So that's pretty much the long story short in how I got this job at the Athletic.
Yeah, or that, or he maybe got confused with the Claret and Blue teams, one or the other. But yeah, cool. Well, we're glad that you're not the Burnley writer, man. Definitely glad you're the West Ham writer. And let's talk about West Ham. First, want to talk. Let's rewind slightly. Obviously, the January transfer window was the subject of much disdain amongst West Ham fans. Obviously, frustration, disappointment in not signing a single body to bring in to support what is admittedly a pretty thin squad. Um, I guess just my only real question is, in your opinion, why do you think David Moyes did not bring in anyone in January?
Well, I'll start by saying we definitely tried. We definitely tried to bring in. Well, they made bids for quite a few players, but I think ultimately for West Ham it was a case of them just leaving it late. And if you look back at Moyes' track record in terms of signings, obviously they've been great. The Borens, the Thomas Solchek, the Vladimir Fowles, the Ben Lamas, they've all been good signings. But if you look at the actual date the deal gets announced, by and large, it's on deadline day or 1 or 2 days prior to deadline day. So it's been late signings. And it's so good making late signings, but eventually it's going to come back to bite you in the you know what. And I think in
Hmm.
January, that was ultimately West Ham's downfall. It came back to bite them in the you know what because they made bids for example, Leeds United's winger Rafinha, Darwin Nunes with Benfica forward. They tried to sign, I think it's David Zapata, I think his last name is, to Atalanta.
Yeah, a lot. Yeah. Hmm.
They tried to sign him 4 days prior to the closure of the window. So, I mean, they tried, but they left it late ultimately. So that's why they weren't able to bring anyone in. And a lot of fans, based on what I've seen, whether it's like social media or fans I've spoken to at the ground, a lot of them feel like it was a missed opportunity because when you think about West Ham and where the club are right now, we don't know if West Ham will be challenged for fourth next season because this summer, we'll get into it later on, but it's going to be so hard. You factor Declan Rice, Jared Bowen,
Hmm.
Pablo Fornal, there's so many key players that will be of interest for other clubs. So that's one point. The second point is we saw Burnley sign a striker. We saw Newcastle invest. Obviously, they have new owners, of course, but
Right.
it's like when West Ham were fighting relegation, the club was signing players in January, but now, trying to get into top four, it's like what on earth is going on here? Like we should be trying to make sure we're perennial challenges for top four. So I therefore subscribe to the opinion that it's a missed opportunity for West Ham because the squad is so thin. and you're just one injury away from the season unraveling, unfortunately.
Were you surprised at the end of the month that there were no additions made? Like, did you think that there would be at least one? I mean, David Moyes certainly said that he wanted to bring in people.
I'm still surprised now. Still surprised
Fair.
now. Around what 6 o'clock, 6 p.m. on deadline day, I was told it's very unlikely that we'll be doing business, and I thought that can't be the case. Surely that can't be the case. And I was a bit hesitant in tweeting it because I thought, no, they'll definitely sign someone. And I was told again, listen, extremely unlikely. We're not going to sign anyone. So when I put the tweet out, I mean, yeah, a lot of fans caught tweeting it saying, "Oh my goodness," There's one thing I found funny. A lot of fans were saying we've now become retried FC. And I thought, okay, I thought that was a little bit funny, to be fair. But yeah, again, as I mentioned earlier, I reckon it's definitely a missed opportunity for West Ham, because a club like West Ham, right, previously just about staying up, the occasional top 10 finishes. But right now, it's a bit unusual to be challenging for top four. And you just want to be in a case where it's like you were there, but you didn't seize the moment, because you have that brief window opportunity where you're a Premier League club like West Ham. Because, for example, the season when Leicester won, we haven't come close to winning again because the other clubs have got their act together. So you just can't help but feel the Tottenham, the Man United, they'll have a new manager in place next season. The Arsenals, they're having a bit of momentum right now. The other clubs in and around West Ham will get their act together eventually. You just can't help but feel West Ham could be left behind.
Last question on the January window, because it's interesting, but there's a point where you just have to move on, right? We're out of January. But you mentioned something. Historically, David Moyes has left it late. Do you have any insight as to why that is?
Well, he's been on record saying January is very hard to sign players, extremely hard. And I guess that factors into plans. And also the fact, for example, Lingard, with Man United considering West Ham to be top four rivals. 1 year ago, that deal would have been easy to get done, whereas now it's a lot harder because obviously West Ham have European aspirations. So that could be a contributing factor to the fact that West Ham obviously at a different level now as opposed to where West Ham were previously under Moyes. So that's definitely a factor. But it's just a case of the club just thinking, if you get a better deal later on, really. I think that tends to be the narrative at the club in the hierarchy, of course, that they can get better deals much later in the window. But to credit to Moyes, he has improved his recruitment team. He's got Rob Newman in as his recruitment. He's got Jorge Santos as European first scout. Got Grant Holt, who works there. David Moyes Jr., David Moyes' son, of course, he's also there. So it's definitely an improved, and obviously Jordan Miles, who's head of recruitment analysis, I believe. So it's definitely a more experienced recruitment team, but a lot of fans, especially with Rob Newman being in charge of head of recruitment, they're like, what has Rob been doing over the past 2 or 3 months? I haven't got anyone. So I think summer transfer window will be a better reflection of the time they had, because by that point it'll be almost a year since they would have been at the club. So
yeah,
summer transfer window will be a better reflection of that. But yeah, as I mentioned earlier, January was just a window to forget for West Ham, unfortunately.
Yeah. And I think, like I said, we do need to sort of forget and move on. The summer will be big. I've been saying that a lot, and that, okay, David Moyes has earned his right to deal with the transfer window as he sees fit. As you mentioned, the signings that he's made, the transfer activity that he's conducted has been spot on pretty much. So he has a little bit of a long leash, but if we do fall off, right, if the squad depth or lack thereof does seem to affect the team, he's going to have to answer for it in the summer window and really make a splash. Let's talk about the players that we have. There are, I don't know exactly how many players are out of contract as of now at the end of this season, but there are a few names. I believe that Ryan Fredericks is, Andrei Yarmolenko is, I think even Ben Johnson at this moment in time is, obviously Alex Krall on loan. Do you have any insight into if any of the players I just mentioned or any others that are in a similar scenario are either staying or going, or is it still pretty much up in the air?
So I'll start with Ben Johnson, who in my opinion has made a huge progress this season. Huge progress, and he should have been a part of that. England under-21 squad. I think it was November, October time. He definitely should have been part of that because he was in incredible form.
Yeah.
I think that his first 4 or 5 matches, West Ham yet to concede a goal, so he was doing tremendous.
Yes.
So regarding Ben Johnson, he has a clause, a 2-year option the club have, and that expires at the end of May. So we have until the end of May to activate the 2-year clause in his contract, which I'm confident they'll do, because why on earth would you lose Ben Johnson? He's made great progress. Versatile, can play left back and right back, and also centre back, which a lot of people don't know. So He's definitely one which I'm very confident will be sorted in the not too distant future. Fredericks, I believe, has a 1 year option on his contract, and I think it's unlikely he'll stay. For be honest, he's been a bit part player. The two games that come to mind, which I think he's done well the past year, is the game. Well, funny enough, it was Lingard's debut against Aston Villa, where Fredericks played as a white ringer, and Jack Grealish had a very quiet game that day. So that game comes to mind. Another match recently, I forgot who it was against, where he played right back, and he did a good job. So they're the two games that come to mind. But apart from that, he's been injury prone. Barring the two matches I mentioned, he hasn't really had much of an impact. So I can see the club, unfortunately getting rid of Ryan Fredericks. Regarding Andrei Yarmolenko, he also has a 1 year option in his contract. Where do we begin with Andrei Yarmolenko? Where do we begin? The under 23's played, I believe it was Leicester on Friday. I know Yarmolenko went off in that match. Harshly red carded.
Harshly, yeah.
He got sent off in that match. But Yarmolenko
scored too, though.
He scored two, but barring the game against Chelsea where he scored that great winner, we haven't really seen many moments of Yarmolenko being promising in a claret and blue shirt. A lot of fans are like, all he ever does is cut in on his left. That's all he's going to do, just cut in on his left. We all know it. He's going to cut in on his left and he's going to go over the bar or what have you. I've seen some fans say, well, obviously, we mentioned earlier about January, West Ham didn't sign anyone. And then a few fans would say, I can't wait to see Yarmolenko and Masuaki come on for the last 10 minutes for the remainder of the season. I'm really looking forward to that. So Yarmolenko is someone who definitely polarizes his opinion, as I mentioned, just hasn't got going in a claret and blue shirt. He's also been injury prone a few times. And I think the one thing that's also frustrated fans with Yarmolenko is his body language. So if the FA Cup Twitter account posted a video of Declan Rice's equaliser against Kidderminster Harriers. I saw Fornals jumping in the air, getting excited, and every other teammate, responding well. Yarmolenko's body language was really poor. Really poor. As if he couldn't care less. So fans will see that and be like, first of all, you're poor in that match. You're not even celebrating. Why on earth are you here? So all factors considered, I can't picture Yarmolenko in a claret and blue shirt next season. And Fabianski, I believe his contract expires this summer, and he's in talks talks in a minute for a 1 year option. I believe that he will stay. He's been promising. I think the challenge of Alphonse Areola for the number 1 jersey has been great for Fabianski. He's elevated his game, in my opinion. Been a lot more reliable. In the game against Kidderminster Harriers, I think Areola showed why he's not quite there yet for number 1. A few times they may cross into the box. He's just thinking, just catch the ball. Whereas that's Fabianski, he would have been a lot more braver. So there's him. There's Bonner. I believe his contract also expires. But obviously, with Bonner having a season-ending injury, there's also 1 year option in his deal. So I'm confident he'll stay. Also, with his rehabilitation, I can't see why the club will let him go.
Yeah.
He's not back to full fitness yet.
On Areola, do you think that he'll stay even if, let's say, Fabianski does come back? Do you think Areola will come back?
I think a lot of that depends on whether West Brom get promoted or not. I think it hinges on that, because if West Brom, fail to get promoted, then I can see David Moyes favouring Sam Johnson, the player that West Ham have previously been linked with. If Areola, he's good. I like him based on what I've seen so far, but he does have his weakness, as I mentioned. His distribution is good. He's confident when it comes to making short passes or doing a goal kick to spot a teammate. But when it comes to giving defense confidence when it comes to catching corners or catching free kicks, doesn't really feel you have much confidence as of yet. So I can see the club being like, listen, you've been great for us, but we're going to try and get this other goalkeeper in instead.
And lastly, on Yarmolenko, I know you mentioned the body language. That video went viral. And then he goes to the U23s. Is there any connection there? And if not, why did he play for the U23s?
I have to give him credit. Andrei Yarmolenko is the type of player that will tell Moyes, I want to play for the U23s. He does that quite a lot. He asks the gaffer to play those U teams just to get a bit of minutes under his belt, because obviously with the first team, by and large, it's 5-10 minutes. Obviously played, I think, the full match, I believe, against Kidderminster Harriers. But barring that, it's 5-10 minutes in the league. So he's been not every journal noticed, but I'm definitely aware that he asks his Moyes to play the odd matches for the 23. So it wouldn't surprise me if that was the case on Friday.
Wow. Okay, so he's the one that's sort of been asking for that opportunity. Yeah. Gotcha. Do you know if that red card prevents him from playing tomorrow potentially?
That's a good question. I'm not sure, to be fair. Okay. I'm not sure. I'm not quite sure. I'm not sure how it works for 123s.
Well, I guess we'll find out. We'll find out tomorrow. No, great insight there. Thanks for that, Roshane. Let's move on to the incident that has been talked about the most over the last week, and that's the incident with Kurt Zouma. Video came out. I forgot exactly what day it was, but it was earlier this week. I think it might have been Monday. Of him. I actually have not seen the video. Admittedly, I didn't really want to watch it, to be honest. And Twitter told me all I really needed to hear. Abusing his pet cat. How did you find out about it, and what was your reaction to it when you first learned of the story?
We got wind of it about an hour prior to the Sun breaking the story. But when my editor told me the Sun have a story on Kurt Zouma and it could be bad, I was thinking, oh, okay, so I'd imagine they have the exclusive on Kurt Zouma being injured out for the season, because if you remember, in the match with Leicester, he was holding his right knee, and then Declan Rice was calling for the bench to come over because it looked quite serious. So I was thinking, okay, because after the match we spoke to Moyes and he said, Zuma's okay, he should be fine, but putting two together with the Sun story, I'm thinking, okay, it could be a lot worse. So when I saw the story and it's about a cat, I'm thinking, a cat? What on earth is this story? But when I watched it, when I read the article, and obviously watched the video, I thought, my goodness, this is just. And I tweeted after, shameful behaviour from Kurt Zouma. Shameful behaviour. And I think it was a wrong decision for Moyes to play him on Tuesday. In my opinion, that added fuel to the fire. And as a result of that, we've seen, Bland's kissing me withdraw their partnership with West Ham. We've seen Kurt Zouma lose his boot to Adidas. We've seen his younger brother be suspended by Dagenham Redbridge. So it's had huge implications on Kurt Zouma. But I must say, Justin, I believe the reaction has been a little bit over the top.
The reaction from the media, like post Watford.
Post Watford, I believe some of it's justified, but calling for Kurt Zouma to be sacked, I don't believe that should be the case. Calling for Kurt Zouma to never play for West Ham again, I don't believe that should be the case, because as footballers done far worse. I've been allowed to play. I'm not going to say some stuff is done, because some stuff are just inhumane what some of footballers have done, but yet they were allowed to play football. So with Kurt Zouma, yes, I don't condone what he done, terrible, but let's have a bit of common sense here. He should, volunteer at a cat shelter. He should show he's remorseful, but the fact people said he should be sacked, don't play football again, I don't subscribe to that narrative.
Yeah, I mean, totally agree. I do think it's more of the mainstream media trying to cause a ruckus, trying to keep the story alive. I will say, and it sounds like your opinion is in line with mine, I will say that playing him versus Watford, certainly it gave the media an excuse to intensify the story, I think, a little bit more. And correct me if I'm wrong, I think what you said was you do not think that he should have played against Watford, correct?
Yeah, he shouldn't have played that match. Prior to the match, I asked a few fans for their opinion, and then this one supporter, he was like, his daughter asked him, why is Kurt Zouma in the team? And he's like, I don't even know what to tell her right now. I haven't got a clue what I'm going to tell her, because, we're West Ham, we're a family club. Yeah, it seems like we're rewarding bad behaviour. Bear in mind, many hours prior, West Ham put out a strongly worded statement saying we strongly condemn Kurt Zouma for his actions, yet you play him. So on one hand, you're coming down hard on him. On the other hand, you're showing don't really care. Well, right now, the 3 points is the most important thing. So I think that reflected poorly in the club. But listen, if I'm Kurt Zouma right now, I'm immensely grateful to David Moyes. I really am, because David Moyes has been willing to put his reputation on the line just to put Kurt Zouma in the team and back him. I thought it was nice of Mikel Antonio to come out in the media, I think it was on Thursday, to come out in defense of Kurt Zouma, because quite often in cases like this, footballers, teammates in particular, are very quiet. They don't want to get backlash. They don't like brand deals or agents saying, why on earth are you coming out and speak to the media for? So I thought it was nice of Antonio, one of his teammates, to come out and be like, look, I don't condone what he's done, but let's have a bit of common sense here.
Yeah. It's interesting, and one of the polls we ran before this show is we asked fans, do you personally think Kurt Zouma should have played against Watford? Yes, I thought it was very interesting. I thought at the very least it would be split, but that's a heavy majority saying yes. I agree with you. I think his behavior warranted a game suspension. Just simply because the behavior, and I think this is the one thing we all agree with, it was shameful, and it's something that was pretty abhorrent, to be honest, and not really sure what he was thinking, but nonetheless, just on that alone, I think he should have been suspended or not put in the squad for a game. But as I mentioned, I also think it just gave everyone a reason to to criticize West Ham, criticize David Moyes, and have sponsors like the Kissimmee, I think Vitality as well, basically remove their association with the club. I really think that if Zouma does not play against Watford, those sponsors are still with the club. To be honest, although I do find it hypocritical that Kissimmee in particular
SeaWorld,
promotes SeaWorld. Yeah. Again, there's hypocrisy. There are also pundits that have, as you mentioned, there's an overreaction post Watford. There are pundits that have been calling for Zouma to get sacked who have done things in the past themselves that are arguably even worse. Hypocrisy at its finest. But again, I do agree with you that he should not have played against Watford. I am, again, surprised at these stats right here. Heavy majority, 71%.
But you know what, right? I think a lot of that stems from the fact, let's say if you're a fan and you don't own a pet, you're thinking it's only a cat. What's all the outrage for? But especially in England, there's the vast majority of people in this country love their animals, absolutely love their animals. And that's one. If there's one thing that went into back until the end, it's animals and having a strong stance on animal what's the word? Animal cruelty, I believe the word is. So, that's the one thing they have a strong stance against. So I think that's also high into this reaction. But the thing is, right, you have to remember, there's people out there who don't watch football, they've never been to a football match, they probably don't even know who the England captain is, but they know Kurt Zouma for being a footballer who's kicked a cat. So that tells you how strong this story right now is. Bigger than West Ham right now. So it shows you how much of a reach the story has traveled.
I mean, do you think it's gonna fall by the wayside anytime soon, or do you think that it'll keep coming through the mainstream media cycle?
Well, I'll start by saying this will definitely follow Kurt Zouma for the rest of his career. It definitely will do. You have to remember, the matter is still an ongoing investigation by the RSPCA. So they haven't given us their final conclusion of the matter. And they've also put a statement earlier saying it's not true that they've invited Kurt Zouma to come down to do a bit of voluntary work rather. So I reckon it's going to be ongoing for another week. To be fair, I'm very interested to see what boots Kurt Zouma wears tomorrow, because he's been dropped by Adidas. So there's every chance he could wear black boots tomorrow, because another brand, whether it's Nike, New Balance, Umbro, Under Armour, I think other brands will be like, yeah, we don't want to work with this guy. So they're very likely he'll wear black boots against Southampton tomorrow.
Interesting. Something to look out for. We'll see how that continues. He is probably going to play against Leicester. Moyes has stuck by it.
That's the reason why he wouldn't play. But he might play against Tuesday.
Yeah, exactly. I honestly think it would be, at this point, even worse to just go back and flip-flop and suspend him for Leicester. I don't know. They made a decision. I disagree with it, but now at this point, you just got to stick with it.
But one point before I get to move on, I'm interested to see the reaction from Leicester fans, because against Watford on Tuesday is a home game, and it's obviously Watford fans are doing their chants, they're booing Kurt Zouma, but quite often a handful of West Hams will cheer in response. Sunday it's an away game at the King Power Stadium, so obviously West Ham fans will be outnumbered. So it's very likely the vast majority of Leicester fans will be booing Kurt Zouma. So that could be challenging. As we mentioned, we don't condone what he's done, but if you think about mental health and Kurt Zouma, the human being, that's gonna be a huge challenge for him tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about that Leicester match. It's a club that have finished fifth in each of the last two seasons, have choked and given up a Champions League spot in each of the past two seasons. Brendan Rodgers overall has done a good job. They seem to be struggling a bit. They got absolutely destroyed by Nottingham Forest in the Cup last weekend. And Rodgers even called out, not individual players by name, but as a broader collective, called out some of his players, saying that there's a lack of hunger in the team. Heading into this match, Roshane, what is your opinion about West Ham's chances of going into the King Power? Always a difficult place to play, and picking up a result.
Well, I think West Ham are going to this match favourites. I really do. They're going to this match favourites. So I think there's no reason why West Ham should fare Leicester right now. You mentioned they got, they lost after the heavy defeat to Nottingham Forest. They got battered against Nottingham Forest. It was such a heavy defeat. And obviously they lost against Liverpool midweek with Diego Jota scoring 2 goals. And I think there's 2 factors here when you think about Leicester's slumping form. is the fact we don't have Jamie Vardy. So it shows how reliant we've been on him for goals. And you also have to remember, right, prior to Ralph Rangnick being appointed interim manager at Man United, Brendan Rodgers was linked to that job. And it's no secret that, their form has sort of coincided, their loss of form rather, has been coincided with Brendan Rodgers not getting the job. So that's led to that slump in my opinion. So they're the two things I think of. And you have to remember, Leicester, they should be like West Ham right now, trying to get to the top 4. And it should be West Ham like Leicester, struggling. But it's crazy how things have flipped around. So I see no reason why West Ham can't go to this match being favourites. Jared Bowen's in great form. I think Antonio was due a goal, so hopefully he'll score tomorrow. And it's a great chance for West Ham to, seal back-to-back wins. And for me personally, I'll be going back to London in time to watch Super Bowl. So perfect Sunday for me, hopefully.
Yeah, the Super Bowl. So that'll be around 11 p.m. your time, 11:30?
Yeah, obviously, the match starts 4:30. You finish around 6. Let's say the 8 o'clock train back to London. You get to London for about 10:30. Then I'm trying to get home in time for the Super Bowl. That's my priority. That's my priority for Sunday.
Nice. Yeah, you talked about Antonio and Bowen. Someone that I thought made a great difference when he came on against Norwich in the last match was Manuel Lanzini. I thought he played really well. He came on for Benrahma, who admittedly didn't really do a whole lot, didn't really offer a whole lot, and Lanzini I thought was very direct. I believe he had the assist on the Bowen goal. Did a really good job. We posed a poll. I don't think I put it here, but we posed a poll that asked who starts, Manuel Lanzini or Said Benrahma. 77% of fans said Lanzini. What are your thoughts?
That's a very interesting question, Justin. A very, very interesting question. Because you know what, right? When Lanzini came on in the last game, which was against Watford, right? Yeah, I'm forgetting these matches. There's so many matches, pal. Obviously against Watford. It reminded me of the win against Aston Villa when Lanzini came on and pretty much changed the game. Because, Aston Villa created a number of chances. They could have scored. They should have scored more goals. Lanzini came on, and straight away the momentum went to West Ham. And he was a big factor behind that 4-1 win. And yeah, that performance against Watford reminded me of that game. And if I'm David Moyes, I'm playing Benrahma again. And I'm just sort of having Lanzini as a sort of super sub. Because if you think about our options from the bench, you have Yarmolenko, Masuaku's an injury doubt. I don't think he'll be involved. Sonny Perkins, he's still very young, so he's not really able to have an impact right now. Armstrong's yet to make a first-team appearance. There's hardly any attacking threat from the bench. Nikolai Vlasic, but he's still finding his way in a West Ham shirt. So, next season I'm hoping to see more consistency from him. So in terms of who's been more productive off the bench, it's been Manuel Lanzini this season. So if I'm David Moyes, I'm keeping Lanzini on the bench just to have an impact off the bench. Benrahma, the one thing about Benrahma is he's good. We all know he's good, but he doesn't do it long enough. Benrahma will have 2 great games and then go missing for the next 10 games. So for Benrahma, it's all about being consistent. And I think he just lacked that at times this season. So I think that's one of the reasons why fans get frustrated with him sometimes, because against Kidderminster, a bit quiet as well. Against Watford, a tad bit quiet as well. So, and the thing is, right, when he has a quiet game, he's quiet. He don't really have much of an impact. Whereas when Bowen or Antonio or Lanzini have quiet games, they're still doing stuff. So yeah, but in answer to your question, if I'm David Moyes, I'm keeping Lanzini on the bench.
A question that just popped into my mind. Jared Bowen, who has been with the club slightly longer than Said Benrahma, maybe about a half season more. Even as recently as last season, he had a little bit of inconsistency. Sometimes couldn't finish, just maybe missed a game or two here or there. And you really see that he's taking that next step. And he may have a bad game, but he's going to have 3, 4, 5 good games in a row following that. And now he's really to the point where he doesn't really have a whole bad game. Maybe I'll have a bad half and then I'll pick it up, sort of like he did against Norwich. And I think a lot of that has to do with his work ethic. You can see it on the pitch. I'm assuming that translates from the training ground. And I'm not saying Said Benrahma doesn't have that. And I guess that's sort of actually my question to you is I've always felt David Moyes has been hard on Said, and not that it's not warranted. He's just always expected a lot of Said, but he's always said Said will need time to grow into the game. Said will need to just be patient with him. You can even hear him on the television saying, "Said, get up, get up, get up." Do you think that Said Benrahma you may not have any insight into this, but if you do you think that Said bin Rama has that mentality, that attitude, where that mentality and attitude that will be necessary for him to take that next step, similar to how Bowen has this year?
The difference I say between Benrahma and Jared Bowen is Benrahma, he strikes me as being a confidence player. You know, the sort of player that needs an arm around his shoulder. You need to tell him that you're good, like you can have a great game. Whereas Jared seems to be, he sort of takes the onus on himself. Like, what am I not doing right? I need to do this right. So I'll give you an example. So with Bowen, I think it was after, no, not I think, it was after the 2-1 win over Leeds, right? When Antonio scored the winning goal. We asked,
I was at that game, by the way.
Okay, yeah, no, that was a really good game,
Yeah.
And asked Moyes, what's been the secret behind Bowen this season? Because he looks, a lot better this season as opposed to last season. And then David Moyes says he's a lot fitter. That's the main difference between Bowen from last season and this season. He's a lot fitter. Because if you remember from last season, Justin, quite often the first player to be taken off will be David Moyes.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, David Moyes. Will be Jared Bowen.
Jared Bowen, right? Mm-hmm.
He would always be the first player to be taken off, to the point where as soon as you saw the electric board, you knew it would be Jared Bowen, because always the first player to be taken off. So, and if you look back on his last 10 or 11 games, he's played the full 90. So
Yeah.
Fitness. But obviously, as a reporter, you try and find out how to become a lot more fit. So you make phone calls. And then I was told he didn't go away on a holiday in the summer. He stayed in Hereford. He worked in the farm, pushing trucks and all the crazy stuff he was doing, because he wanted to work on his calf muscles. He wanted to have a lot more strength in his calf muscles. And I spoke to a member of Moyes' coaching staff, and they said, especially last season toward the latter parts, they sat down after training sessions and they would show Jared Bowen video clips of Arjen Robben and obviously Frank Ribery, because they felt for Jared Bowen to reach the next level, he needed to be all round. It's all good and well, using your left foot. You start using your right foot a lot more. So what they would do is they'll have Stuart Pearce, for example, come up against Jared Bowen in one-on-one situations, and there was a catch. You can dribble with your right foot, but you have to shoot across with your right. Sorry, you can dribble with your left foot. You have to shoot across with your right foot. And obviously, we see this season Jared attempt more shots and more crosses with his right foot. He's become a lot more all-rounded, and that's definitely been a contributing factor behind his form. With Said bin Rama, if you remember last season, he missed so many big chances. He'll get it great in areas, but he just wouldn't have the confidence in the final third. So again, Moyes' coaching staff, what they'll do is they'll go over those moments, go over the areas he would miss in training, and they'll be like, all right, now you got to score. So again, so remember, right? If you remember back to the Carabao Cup win over Man City, I believe it was Said bin Rama who scored the winning penalty.
Mm-hmm.
So as you mentioned, you need to have a lot of confidence to be in a situation like that, score the winning penalty. So the coaching staff, what they'll do is, as I mentioned earlier, he's more of a confidence player. You got to make him feel good. So in those situations, they'll make him score. He'll have to come up against Nathan Trott, the young defender. You have to find a way to score past Nathan Trott. And obviously, the more he'll score past him, the more coaches will praise him. So I say that's the difference between Jared Bowen and Said bin Rama in terms of both reach the level of confidence, I'd say.
Interesting, very interesting insight there. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and I've never thought about it that way. But now that you mentioned it, that definitely makes a lot of sense. You've heard the Bowen stories too about pushing trucks and running in the fields. Yeah. His right foot though has gotten exponentially better, so that all makes sense.
And he's a shoo-in for the England squad next month, Justin. A shoo-in.
Oh yeah,
been a great form, and it's going to be well deserved.
Yeah, without a doubt. I think he has the most goal contributions of any Englishman in the Premier League to this point. So, I mean, it would be a travesty if he wasn't. So, Roshane, we're going to wrap this up pretty soon. One last question, and then we'll get to your question that you want to pose. I'm going to share my screen really quick too. Very, very simple question about the upcoming fixture against Leicester. Basically, what will the result be? West Ham win, a Leicester win, a draw, or a goalless draw, I guess, is the fourth option. So I would be shocked if it was goalless. But
I love that response from Matthew Howard. West Ham win with Zouma playing and a clean sheet just to piss off the people calling for it.
So what do you think?
Definitely a West Ham win, pal. Definitely a West Ham win. I'll be very surprised if West Ham don't win this match. So yeah, West Ham win.
Most people agree with you. 61%.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's definitely good.
Yeah,
that's definitely good. Yeah. West
okay.
Ham.
I hope the people are right. So yeah, Roshane, thanks again. Really appreciate the time, man. It's always a pleasure talking to you. We always have our guests you know, pose a question or a poll. So without further ado, I'll let you pose it to the fans.
Yeah, so I've been really torn between who will win this. So my question to you guys is, who will win the Ham of the Year? And obviously between Jared Bowen and Declan Rice. And we all know Declan Rice is just amazing talent, different gravy, as the young kids say. But Jared Bowen has taken his game to another level this season. And right now, I'm all drawn towards Jared Bowen for Ham of the Year. So
Wow.
I want to get you guys' thoughts on who it should be.
Wow. Interesting. Interesting. Yeah, that's going to be an interesting poll. We'll keep you up to date on the results of it. But Roshane, thanks a lot again. Really appreciate it, everyone. You can check out Roshane's work on The Athletic, theathletic.com. It's a great app if you're a sports fan, not just a soccer fan as well. All different types of sports on there. And if you're a soccer fan, it's probably the best place to catch some in-depth coverage on different teams and leagues from around the world, not just West Ham. So Roshane, again, thanks a lot, man. Really appreciate the time, and we'll catch up soon.
Sure thing, bro.